The storm rolled across the Wyoming prairie like a living beast as Tabitha Hayes clung to her saddle, her fingers tight around the horn, her heart beating hard in her chest. The sky had turned a deep angry gray. Lightning tore across it without warning. Every sound, every flash, every gust of wind told her she might have made the biggest mistake of her life. But she kept riding. She had fled Boston for freedom. Yet freedom had met her with thunder and fear on a wild horse she barely knew how to control. At only 22, she had run from a life planned for her since childhood. Her father had arranged a marriage to Edmund Holloway, a man old enough to be her father twice over, a man whose cold eyes had followed her every move. The night before the wedding, she had packed a small carpet bag, grabbed the money her mother left her, and boarded a westbound train. Now, in the middle of the Wyoming Territory in 1878, that bold decision felt dangerously close to foolishness. A sharp crack split the sky. Her horse panicked, rearing hard. Tabitha fell backward. Her scream was swallowed by the thunder as she hit the ground, pain shooting through her shoulder. The stallion bolted, carrying all her supplies with it until it vanished into the angry curtain of rain. Wind whipped her dress around her legs as she forced herself upright. She was soaked, cold, and alone in a land she barely understood. Then a voice cut through the storm. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" Tabitha's heart leapt. She spun around trying to see through the rain. A rider approached, tall and broad-shouldered, his horse pushing steadily through the mud. Fear tightened her throat. A lone woman on the frontier was vulnerable. A lone woman with a strange man could be even more so. The rider stopped a few paces away and raised both hands slowly. "My name's Lucas Wright," he called over the wind. "I run the W Ranch east of here. I'm not here to harm you. Just offering help." Tabitha hesitated. Rain poured down her face. She hurt. She was terrified. She had no horse, no direction, no shelter. The storm roared around her like it meant to swallow her whole. "You won't make it through the night out here," Lucas said, his voice steady and honest. "Please, let me help." Another deafening thunderclap made her flinch. She nodded. "Yes, I accept." Lucas moved with calm care, helping her onto his horse. When he mounted behind her, she stiffened at the closeness. His arm slid around her waist. "I'll need to steady you," he said gently. "The ground's rough." She nodded again, unable to speak. She wasn't used to being held by a man, especially not one who smelled of leather, smoke, and honest work. But his presence kept her from shaking apart completely. Thu Ranch appeared like a vision through the storm, lamplight glowing from a solid log cabin. A barn standing sturdy against the wind. It was the first safe thing she had seen since fleeing Boston. Lucas led her inside the warm cabin. A fire burned bright in the stone hearth, filling the room with golden light. It was simple. Wooden table, chairs, a sofa, and a small bedroom off to the side. But it felt more welcoming than any place she had known in a long time. "It's not much," Lucas said, almost shy, "but it's warm." "It's lovely," Tabitha said truthfully. Lucas handed her a dry flannel shirt and trousers. "You can change behind that screen. I'll make coffee." Behind the wooden screen, Tabitha slipped out of her soaked dress with shaky fingers. Pain still throbbed in her shoulder. She pulled on the oversized clothes, grateful for their warmth. When she stepped out, Lucas was tending the pot on the stove, his hat and coat removed. His brown hair curled slightly at the ends, his blue eyes were sharp, but kind. "Feeling better?" he asked. "Yes, thank you." They sat at the table with steaming mugs. The storm beat against the roof, but inside everything felt calm. "What brings you so far from the city?" he asked. "How did you know I'm from the city?" she countered. Lucas gave a small smile. "Your accent, your clothes, and the way you fell off that horse." Despite everything, Tabitha nearly laughed. She told him she was from Boston, that she had come west to start over. She didn't tell him everything. Not yet, but he didn't push her. They ate a simple dinner. And for the first time in days, Tabitha's shoulders relaxed. When night came, Lucas laid blankets on the sofa. "You take the bed," he said firmly. "I couldn't. It's your home. You've had a hard day. Let me do this." Too tired to argue, she nodded and retreated to the small bedroom. She lay awake for a long time, listening to the fire crackle and the quiet movements of Lucas settling in the other room. She was vulnerable and far from everything she had known. Yet she felt safer here than she had felt in Boston in years. Morning came bright and quiet. Lucas greeted her with breakfast already cooking and unexpected news. "Your horse came back," he said. "Found him in the corral." Relief flooded her. But when Lucas asked where she planned to go next, she had no answer. The truth was she didn't know. Her only plan had been escape. Lucas studied her with calm understanding. "Nearest town is Willow Creek," he said. "I'm heading that way today. I'll take you there." Tabitha looked into his steady blue eyes and realized she trusted him. "Thank you," she said softly. And with that, her new life began. The sun rose high over the Wyoming prairie as Tabitha and Lucas rode toward Willow Creek. The storm had washed the land clean. The air smelled fresh and sharp, like sage and new beginnings. Lucas rode beside her, steady and silent, guiding her through the open land with the ease of a man born to it. Tabitha sat straighter in her saddle than she ever had in Boston's parks, wanting him to see she could learn that she wasn't as helpless as she had seemed the night before. He pointed out mountain peaks and creeks, explaining how travelers used them to find their way. She listened closely, feeling for the first time that knowledge was not something expected of her, but something freely offered. Each mile brought a strange warmth she couldn't name, a comfort she hadn't expected to find in a land so wild. "Willow Creek is a small place," Lucas said as they passed a stand of cottonwoods. "But the people are good. I hope they'll accept me," Tabitha admitted. Lucas glanced at her. "They'll see what I see." She felt heat rise in her cheeks, but didn't ask what he meant. By late afternoon, the town came into view. Dusty Main Street, wooden storefronts, a church steeple, and a few scattered homes. Nothing like the polished stone and brick of Boston, but it felt alive, honest, real. Mrs. Carpenter's boarding house stood at the end of the street, painted a bright yellow that seemed to glow in the sun. The older woman greeted Lucas like an old friend and welcomed Tabitha with warm curiosity. It was the first truly kind face Tabitha had seen in weeks. "You're safe here, dear Mrs. Carpenter said with a pat on her arm. "Well, look after you." Quote, for the first time since fleeing Boston, Tabitha felt something like hope settle in her chest. Lucas helped bring in her belongings, little more than a carpet bag. As he set it down inside the small guest room, he paused in the doorway, the late afternoon light outlining his broad shoulders. "I'll be back in a week," he said. "Supplies run. If you need anything before then, Mrs. Carpenter will help you." Tabitha's heart dipped at the thought of him leaving. "Thank you, Lucas, for everything." He tipped his hat, almost shy. "You're welcome, Tabitha. Be safe now." And then, with a final glance, he mounted his horse and rode away, dust rising behind him. The days that followed were filled with new experiences. Mrs. Carpenter taught her how to work a wood stove, mend torn seams, and keep the boarding house accounts. Tabitha tried each task with focus and determination. For the first time in her life, she was learning skills that made her feel capable instead of decorative. But life in Willow Creek was not easy. The town had no place for idle hands. The general store had no openings. The school had a teacher. The saloon was not an option. Tabitha refused to become a burden. Then Mrs. Carpenter made a suggestion that changed everything. The bank could use help. She said, one evening, "Mr. Donovan's eyesight isn't what it once was. And your handwriting is neat as a pin." Tabitha hesitated. A bank, numbers, ledgers, a piece of her old life, but this time by her own choice. The next morning, she walked into Willow Creek Bank with her chin held high. Mr. Donovan looked her over through thick spectacles. "You know, accounts?" he asked. "Yes, sir." "Then show me." He placed a ledger in front of her. Tabitha turned the pages quickly, identifying dozens of misplaced numbers and columns out of order. Her hands moved easily over the ink and paper. It felt natural, comfortable, even. By afternoon, she was hired. 3 days a week, $1.50, 50 cents a day. Not much, but it was hers. A week later, as she balanced the day's tally, she saw Lucas through the window. He tied his horse at the general store, the afternoon sun warming his bronze skin. Before she realized what she was doing, she hurried outside Lucas. He turned. Surprise lit his face, then something warmer. "Miss Hayes," he said, smiling. "You look well. I found work," she said proudly, at the bank. His eyebrows lifted. "Banking? That's something. My father was a banker," she said. "I grew up around ledgers." A shadow passed over his expression at the mention of her father, but he quickly pushed it aside. "Then this town is lucky to have you. Would you like to have dinner with me?" Lucas asked suddenly. "To celebrate your job." Tabitha's breath caught. Dining alone with a man would have been unthinkable in Boston. But this wasn't Boston. This was her choice. "I'd like that very much." Dinner at the small hotel was simple. Beef steak, potatoes, warm bread, but it felt special. They talked like old friends. Tabitha told him about her first week at the bank. Lucas told her about the ranch, about the hard winters, and the pride of raising strong cattle. His words were quiet but full of heart. At one point, she laughed at something he said, an honest laugh. She didn't hold back, and she caught him watching her, his eyes filled with something soft and hopeful. When he walked her back to the boarding house, they stood under the porch light for a long moment. Neither spoke. Neither stepped away. "I won't be in town for a while," Lucas said finally. "Roundup is coming, but when I return, I'd like you to visit the ranch properly this time." Quote, warmth filled her chest. "I would like that, Lucas." He tipped his hat, eyes lingering on her, a heartbeat longer. "Good night, Tabitha." "Good night." She watched him ride away, her heart fluttering with something she didn't yet dare to name. It might have been the beginning of love, or the beginning of a life she had once thought impossible. But whatever it was, Tabitha knew one thing for certain. She wanted to see him again. When Lucas finally returned from Roundup in early July, Tabitha heard the sound of his horse before she even saw him. She and Mrs. Carpenter were hanging laundry in the sun when he rode down the dusty main street, skin bronzed from long days on horseback, jaw a little more rugged than she remembered. He spotted her instantly and turned his horse toward the boarding house. Tabitha's breath caught. It had been weeks, yet seeing him again felt like something inside her finally clicked back into place. "Afternoon, ladies," Lucas called as he dismounted. He removed his hat, his blue eyes settling on Tabitha, Miss Carpenter. Tabitha, Mrs. Carpenter, grinned like she knew exactly what he felt. "Come sit for lemonade, Lucas right. You've worked yourself thin." "Thank you, ma'am," he said, then looked straight at Tabitha. "But I'd like a word with Tabitha first if she's willing." Mrs. Carpenter gathered the laundry with a wink and disappeared inside, leaving them alone in the warm sunshine. Lucas stepped closer. "I heard what happened at the bank. The robbery attempt. Are you all right?" Tabitha nodded. "It was frightening, but everything ended well. You could have been hurt." His voice was tight, the muscles in his jaw jumping or worse. "But I wasn't," she said softly. She touched his arm without thinking, and he stilled the contact. "I'm fine, Lucas." He exhaled slowly, then cleared his throat. "Roundup was good. Hard, but good. And I was wondering if you'd like to visit the ranch this Sunday. I remember promising to show it to you properly." Joy warmed her from the inside out. "I would like that," she said, her voice gentle but sure. Lucas smiled. "A real one, wide and warm." "Good. I'll come for you after church." Sunday came too slowly for Tabitha. She wore a simple blue dress that brought out her eyes and pinned her hair in a neat becoming style. Mrs. Carpenter watched her with a knowing expression. "Lucas Wright is a good man, dear," she said. "One of the best. We're just friends," Tabitha insisted, though her pink cheeks betrayed her. Mrs. Carpenter hummed, clearly unconvinced. When Lucas arrived, dressed in clean clothes and freshly shaved, Tabitha felt her heart leap. He helped her into the buggy, his touch steady and careful, and they set off for the W. The ranch looked entirely different in the summer sun. The fields glowed gold. The cabin stood sturdy and inviting. And Lucas's two dogs bounded up with happy barks. "It's beautiful," Tabitha breathed as she stepped down. "So much more peaceful than when I first saw it." Lucas laughed lightly. "Storms have a way of making everything seem meaner than it is." He gave her a full tour. The barn, the corral, the smokehouse, the garden, the springhouse, even the blacksmith shed where he did his own iron work. Everything he showed her carried the mark of hard work and quiet pride. Inside the cabin, Tabitha noticed changes. Clean floors, fresh curtains, wild flowers in a jar. "You did all this for my visit?" she asked softly. Lucas rubbed the back of his neck, embarrassed. "Didn't want the place looking rough." Dinner was simple but delicious. Roast chicken, potatoes, peas, warm bread. They talked about their weeks apart, the town, the cattle, the future. As the sunset painted the prairie orange and red, they sat on the porch close enough that their shoulders brushed. "I should take you back," Lucas said, though his voice carried reluctance. "Mrs. Carpenter will worry." Tabitha nodded, though her heart ached at the thought of leaving. She turned toward him. "Lucas, I." He stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. "Yes," words failed her. Instead, she rose onto her toes and pressed a soft kiss to his cheek. Lucas froze. Then, slowly he turned until their lips were a breath apart. "Tabitha," he whispered. This time, she didn't hesitate. Their lips met in a gentle, careful kiss that held every unspoken feeling between them. Tenderness, hope, fear, want. It was her first kiss, but it felt like something her heart had known for a lifetime. When they parted, Lucas exhaled shakily. "I'd like to call on you in town if you want that." "I want that very much," she whispered. They rode back to Willow Creek in a warm, glowing quiet, hands intertwined. When he said good night, she felt as though the world had finally shifted into its right place. The weeks that followed became a sweet courtship. Lucas came to town often. A lunch here, an evening walk there, Sunday church together. They talked about everything. Her new job, his ranch, their pasts, their dreams. Their bond deepened with every shared smile, and every gentle touch. Then one day, he asked if she'd join him for a special dinner at the ranch. The evening was clear, cool, perfect. When they arrived, paper lanterns hung from the porch to an oak tree. A table stood beneath them, dressed with a white cloth, and lit by the soft glow of candles. The sight made Tabitha's breath catch Lucas. "It's beautiful," he helped her down from the buggy, his hands lingering at her waist. "I wanted tonight to be special." Dinner was wonderful, but the true moment came afterward. Lucas took a deep breath, his eyes on hers. "Tabitha, I admire you. I respect you, and I care for you more deeply than I thought possible." Warmth filled her eyes with tears. "I care for you, too, Lucas." His relief was visible, pure, and heartfelt. "I'm not a wealthy man," he said. "The life I offer is hard, but I can promise a good home, a true partnership, in my heart for as long as I live." Quote, she looked at him, really looked at him, the man who had saved her from the storm, the man who had taught her to see her own strength, the man who had shown her what tenderness truly was. "Lucas, are you asking?" He knelt on one knee. "Tab Hayes, will you marry me?" Her breath broke. Her heart soared. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Lucas, I will." He stood and pulled her into his arms. Their kiss under the paper lanterns was full of promise, hope, and love, stronger than the land they stood on. What followed, the wedding, the first night, the years building a life together, proved something Tabitha had never believed possible. Love was not something to fear. Love was freedom. Love was partnership. Love was the warmth of a cowboy who waited, who never rushed, who held her heart like something precious. And she had given her first night to that man. A man who made her feel cherished. A man who made her feel chosen.